Namaskar friends. Today I want to discuss with you the importance of redirecting the mind towards the right vishaya or the right uh, objects so that we can elevate ourselves in the karmic path and attain Nirgun Brahman, attain salvation quicker. The first thing to understand is that we are in a mode of Prakriti, and most of the things that we can see and perceive are in the realm of Prakriti. Because they are in the realm of Prakriti, they are manifest, they are created, they are things which can be perceived through the senses. And that is why the totality of interpretations that we have are based on the things we can perceive and see and smell and taste and feel. So these are all falling in the realm of Sagun Brahman. The word Sagun, Sa meaning with and Guna meaning influencing material modes of action, material modes of nature, are composed of three different linearities. There is Sattva, which is the realm of balance, lightheartedness, goodness, levity. Then there is Rajas, which is more rocky, fiery, rapid transformation, energetic. And then there's Tamas, which is indolence, sloth, inaction, laziness, learned pattern behavior, extremely predictable pattern behavior. So those are the three. So the mind is basically your interface between Sagun and Nirgun Brahman. When you are in the dreamless state, when you are sleeping very deeply, when you don't have any dreams, then your mind has been totally muted off. And that is the closest you can get to Nirgun Brahman, to the realm of peace that I talk to you all the time. So that is why you are extremely happy, thankful, peaceful, energetic, and you have a lot of energy in the morning. You have a lot of energy whenever you wake up after a deep sleep. So you will be very creative during those periods, because that time you are going to be involving in Sattva and even Gunatit portion of the spectrum. So the mind is your apparatus, your contraption, your beautiful device to experience the Sagun Brahman. The Sagun Brahman is the one which is composed of three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And the whole purpose of incarnating and reincarnating was to experience the Prakriti, the Sagun Brahman. Prakriti Purusho Aste hi Bhumte Prakriti Jan Guran Karanam Gur Sango Ase Sad Sad Yoni Jamshu. To experience the Prakriti, the Purusha is born in the world, and Bhumte Prakriti Jan Guran, to experience the gunas, the Purusha is born in the world of Prakriti, and attachment to the gunas leads to Janma, birth, Sad Asad Yoni, the higher and the lower species. That is how we are born and reborn, based on the karmic consequences, threads we create on exposure to the influencing actions, associations of gunas through the setup of the mind. So the setup of the mind, or the status of the mind, of course it is heavily influenced by samskaras, your past actions, which are floating deep in the sea of proclivities, in strong congenital inclinations that you're not even aware of. Sometimes your friends are more aware of your samskaras than you are. But these are inherent tendencies that are deeply rooted within yourself. And that is what's going to be opening up in default, unless you try to change the status quo. And change the status quo is what we do through meditation, awareness building. So the three states that the mind will try to attach itself to are the three states of guna, and accordingly the mind will become sattvic, mind will become Rajasic or mind will become Tamasic. So when you are trying to use the neocortex or the forebrain, when you are using the vritti, when you are using the portion of the influencing associations, the portion of the gunas that are unfolding in situ, that are unfolding in front of you, then you are trying to erase your past proclivities, your past tendencies, your samskaras. So that is how the vrittis will sink to become the samskaras, and the samskaras will later unfold. So whenever you are not actively working on your mind, the samskaras are in hold. When you are actively working on your mind through the process of awareness building, meditation, through the Tri Yoga and the Panch Pratyahara, then you are building your vrittis, and those vrittis are again working to change your samskaras and improve your samskaras if your vrittis are good. So what you focus on is what you will become. What you think is what you will become. So very important to know what you are thinking about or not thinking about. In the case of dreamless sleep and Nirgun Brahman. So the three states in which you will remain, your mind will always remain, are the one state of extreme intention, sankalp, extreme very good passion. It's not the raga passion that the word we use in Gita all the time for Rajas, but it is the state of sattvic passion, if you will. It is a state of strong belief in yourself and strong conviction. It is a state of extreme awareness that something you're trying to obtain, you will obtain. And that is why I call it sankalp. So the sankalp, sankalp pathway of gunas is the pathway that is the highest. It is the pathway of high conviction, high intention, purposeful passion. High intention, high conviction, purposeful passion, that is your sattvic to gunatit portion of the gunas that is going to help you to obtain the gunatit realm, the Nirgun Brahman. So here the mind is extremely focused on one thing. If the mind is focused on two things, there is always a priority to the one and then something is secondary. But focus by its definition is convergent, and you can converge only on a point, you can converge only on a line, and hence it is very sharp on one thing. Even when you have two strong goals, you are more likely to fail, because there is distribution of time between the two goals, and unless you can coalesce the goals as a part of one bigger goal, one whole goal, you will miss the point, you will most likely fail. So that is why you should have one or maximum two, maximum three goals, purposeful passion, conviction filled goals, targets that you're trying to attain. If it is multifold, multi-branched, the mind is going to fail. Mind is extremely bad at multitasking. Mind was not meant to be multitasking. Mind was meant to perceive one thing with high intensity, high focus. Vyavasayatmika buddhi rekya kurunandan bahushaka heyantaj buddhayo vyavasayinam. The mind that is multifold, multi-branched is always going to fail in attaining what it is trying to attain. So that is why you have to have pinpoint focus. If you are trying to be a better husband, be pinpoint focus on building a relationship in your life. If you're trying to be at work, be pinpoint focus on serving your clients, on fulfilling your projects. So whatever you're doing, you have to have you should have a lot of high intensity focus on a single point, not a multitasking kind of approach to life. So that is the state of high intention, high conviction, purposeful passion that you are employing. It can be seen in case of Elon Musk when he is building Tesla. It can be seen in case of Ramana Maharishi when he is trying to attain Nirgun Brahman by doing meditation hours and hours at a time, or Neem Karoli Baba going and doing dhyan in the caves hours and hours in his youth. So you'll see all these people are full of single purpose that they are chasing, and they are chasing wholeheartedly in totality. There is no division, there is no divide in that purpose. So that is the pathway of gunatit to highly sattvic, high intensity, high conviction, purposeful passion. It is usually one. single purpose that you have to have. Very rarely it will be 2 or 3, but they are again coalesced as one single purpose. Then you will attain that. It cannot be discrete, multiple different projects that you want to attain, and then that is the pathway to failing in life. So that is one group of people, the very small fraction in the world today, who have high intensity, high conviction purpose, passionful purpose, and that is they are hungry for passion. So they have to be hungry for purpose, and they are totally absorbed in it. They are doing the thing because they have strong conviction, strong attraction, love for that project, not because of the monetary gains that they will gain from that purpose or any other gains that you can give them. They love the experience of attaining what they are trying to attain. And when you are in that state of mind, no one can beat you. So that was the one extreme. The other extreme is, of course, the tamasic extreme, and that is spanning from lack of purpose, lack of ego identification in any realm, to the point that you have totally shut down your mind and it is incapable of focusing on anything. So in that case, the senses take over. When the senses take over the mind, when the servant becomes the master, then the world goes in a chaos. So that is why Purusha controls the Prakriti, and then both of them flourish. The moment Prakriti controls the Purusha, everything will go in chaos. Everything will go in destruction. It is not the chaos that leads to creative destruction. It is the chaos that leads to destructive destruction. So that is why the Prakriti should not control the Purusha. Purusha should control the Prakriti. Prakriti should act, manifest, create while under the surveillance of Purusha. So when that cannot happen, when your mind cannot control itself, then the senses take over, and then you are in the influence of intoxicating stimulants. So all the addictions that we talk about, and it cannot just be the regular sad addictions of smoking, alcohol, drugs, sex. It is also things like video games. It is also things such as exposure to any financial markets and trying to make money. It can also be exposure to food. People who are just living to eat 3-4 times a day, and even when they're full, they try to keep eating all the time. So all these are states of Nidra, Alasya and Pramad. These are the basic tamas through the modes of sleep, through the modes of laziness, slothiness, and Pramad is madness, heightened madness that the addictions can give you. So all those are modes of addiction, and all those are modes of silencing of the mind. So the senses take over, and the senses will always desensitize over time. So when you expose them to the same stimulus time and over again, it will not work. That is the classic ICD-10 definition of addiction, that the stimulus is unable to create the same heightened response it did on the first exposure. So the second exposure stimulus always needs to be greater to create the same response. Happens in the body. When you have insulin and glucose, when the insulin receptors are, insulin binds and is exposed to the glucose, the GLUT4 receptors, they are not the same, having the same activity or the potency of the insulin to decrease the glucose. So time and time again, you have to increase the receptors, or you have to increase the dose of the stimulus. So in this case, in our bodies, when you cannot increase the receptors, you need a higher dose of the opium. You need a higher dose of the alcohol. You need something variant in the food, something variant in the sex to get the same enjoyment. Because that enjoyment was not yours. It was Prakriti driven, and you tried to become Prakriti. You tried to become what you are not, and so now you are entrapped in it. And now you are going in this cycle that will cause destructive destruction and destroy the body, and most of the cases overdose and dying in case of addictions, or a slow death in case of other trivial addictions of food and sex, where you lead a meaningless life and you're just growing old. So I said a meaningless life. So that brings me to the third portion. The third portion of your mind is the state in which there's a meaningless existence. These are 80% of the people in the world, I would say, who just have a drudgery, who just have a quasi-miserable existence, who sometimes are miserable and they don't know they are miserable. And that is what tamasic state of mind is. Whereas in Rajasic state of mind, when you're miserable, you are aware of your sufferings and you know that is not the best state to be in. And that is a Rajasic suffering. Whereas tamasic suffering is totally devoid of the ability even to perceive your sufferings, because that is what you have molded yourself into, and that is why you're always suffering. Everybody else around you can see suffering, A person who is addicted to cocaine and alcohol, everybody in the family knows that they're suffering and they're not having a good quality of life, but that person himself cannot bring themselves out of it because the mind has been muted and the senses have taken over, and they just want sensual gratification, the short-term priya, which is no regard for the long-term gratification shreya to build their life, build their families, communities, societies, and that is why the individually perish. So the three states, my friend: one state is heightened conviction, high intensity, purposeful passion. When these are the people like entrepreneurs, these are the people like yogis who have a single purpose and they are trying to just attain this purpose because they have very strong Manipura, very strong Agya Chakra, and that is why they are wonderful in what they achieve. And in this life, they are when they are doing the work that they are doing, it is enjoyment to them. It brings them happiness, and the more they do the work, the more they enjoy. So that is why they are workaholics. They never get tired of the work. They love the work. They don't look at the clock 9 to 5 to get out of the hospital, to get out of the corporate job that they are at. So that is a very small portion of individuals that are the extreme, I would say, left axis, where you are people who are extremely successful, talented. They can be bureaucrats, they can be prime ministers of state, but these are people who are very driven by a lot of driven by a lot of energy in their life, because they have a single target that they're trying to hit. And the extreme opposite of this end is the people who have no targets, who are extremely bored, because boredom is how the problem starts. You don't have an ego identification, you cannot identify with anything, you have nothing to work for, you have nothing, don't have any assigned duty, so you destroy. You use your time to destroy your money, you use your money to destroy your time. So that is the way you will cause yourself damage, because you haven't assigned yourself a Sagun Brahman purpose. And unless you have done all your Sagun Brahman purpose works, you cannot go into the Nirgun Brahman world. You will be an abysmal failure if you try to attain Nirgun Brahman through dhyana until you have done your work in Sagun Brahma of Sakam Karma going into Nishkam Karma. Unless you have completed Karma Yoga, you are going to be an abysmal failure in the realm of Dhyan Yoga. Not that you should not try to do Dhyan Yoga every morning, but remember that there are things that you are born in this world that is indicative of unfinished business, incomplete karma bandhan backlog. There's a lot of prarabdha that has to be thrown at you. That is why you have to prepare yourself in the realm of Sagun Brahman, and that is how you will fortify your body, by giving yourself a purpose, hungry for passion. And that is why you're trying to be at the extreme left axis, where there's high conviction, high intention, passion, full purpose activity, single activity that you're trying to obtain. When you don't have this, then you have exposure to the addictions. And then you see, when people have addictions, I have seen this myself in working in the hospitals, there's polysubstance abuse. Most people who use one substance tend to use more than one substance. People who are using cocaine are also using amphetamines, are also using heroin, are also using blue fentanyl pills, are also doing a little bit of alcohol, also doing a little bit of marijuana, THC. So you'll see a lot of bahushaka hentaj buddhyo. They are multifold, because one thing that they use doesn't bring them the joy anymore. Then they try to experience something else, and this tendency to experience something out of boredom, out of not having an assigned meaning or purpose in life, is what destroys these individuals, because their mind has been muted. Between these two people, high purpose, high passion, and extremely lacking purpose, lack of passion, which is totally overwhelmed by cravings, addictions, desires, are the people who are leading the middle path of misery, where they have meaningless existence. They are trying to live through life without attaining anything, and life just blows by them slowly, one day after another, until they get in the grapples of mrityu, jara, vyadhi, which is old age, disease, and death. So that is why these individuals are either in the realm of rajas, where there is suffering but they're not aware of rajas, where they're suffering and they're aware of their suffering, or they're in the realm of tamas, slowly going towards the addiction pathway, where they will be unaware of their suffering, because they want to mute their mind, they want to dull their sensations, they want to have so much alcohol intoxication so that they cannot be aware of the painful misery surroundings that they are having. That is how the degeneration of the rajas into tamas will happen, when the people have to devolute in the spiritual pathway. whereas there will be evolution of the tamas into rajas when there is evolution, the ascendant pathway that the individual are taking. So people who are constantly fighting the gunas and trying to convert their tamasic tendencies into rajasic tendencies into sattvic tendencies into gunati tendencies are the individuals who will ascend in the karmic pathway, whereas the people who are losing their sattvic tendencies into rajasic burn to get the rapid excitement, and then it will submitting to the tendencies of the tamas, which is mostly in the realm of addictions. Short-term pleasure gratification, dopamine-driven pathways are the ones that are submitting to tamas, and the ones that will experience boredom, the ones that will lose their mind, the focus of the mind, the ability, the generative, creative capacity of the mind that Saraswati gives you, and that's when they will degenerate and devolve themselves into Tanham, Dushta, Kruran, Sansareshu, Naradman, Chipame, Jasran, Subhana, Shurishvev, Yunisu, Asurim, Yunva, Pana, Muddha, Janmani, Mam, Prape, Konte, Yanti, Dhamam Gatim. Those individuals will constantly, because it started from Prakriti Purusho Asthai Bhungta Prakriti Jan Guran, the tendency of the individual Atma to experience the Prakriti. So the Purusha or the Atman was experiencing the Prakriti through the Gunas. But when it got so entangled at the extreme right tamasic tendency end of the Gunas, then it became attached to it. And the Asakti or the attachment to the Gunas, especially the tamasic Gunas, the sense dulling, mind numbing, total craving, desire creating propensities is what slides you down the tamasic pathway into the Adham, the 7 lokas beneath the earth, and that is where Asurim, Yonima, Panna, Muddha, Janmani, Mam, Prape, Kanti, Yan, Dhamam, Gatim. You are born with demonic tendencies time again and again, and failing to achieve me, you keep sinking deeper and deeper. And that is why we have to abolish the tamasic tendencies and try to convert them into rajasic tendencies, because rajas is the way to burn the tamas. The rocky rajas will burn the tamas, otherwise the indolent tamas will slowly wallow you in your misery, slowly take you down the rabbit hole, and you will never be able to come out of it. So my friends, please remember those 3 pathways: the pathway of high intensity, high conviction, purposeful passion that you should constantly try your mind to be engaged in, so that you can avoid the no intensity, no intention, desire driven, boredom driven tamasic tendencies that will swallow your mind, inability to focus. And then in between these two are individuals, 80% of the world, where there's meaningless existence that is slowly probably devoluting them towards tamas, because you are not making a progress. So very important to make small miniature progresses every day as you grow older, so that you can develop some tendencies which will carry forward in your next life. And these Prapya Pundakratam Lokani Shutva Shashwati Sama Suchinam Shrimatam Goho Yog Bhrashta Abhijayate. The Yog Bhrash that we are, the people who tried the Yog pathway did not succeed, will have those tendencies with them in the next life as good samskaras, which they will carry forward, and then they will attain the left axis of high intensity, high conviction. Through Sattva, they will become Gunatit, and then they will go into Nirgun Brahman. You cannot enjoy Nirgun Brahman until you have abolished all the tendencies in the Sagun Brahman, until you have used your mind to overcome the tamasic tendencies of the Sagun Brahman, and then only you can ascend your pathway. So just remember that mind is the interface between the Nirgun Brahman and the Sagun Brahman. When we came to the Prakriti, to the world of Sagun Brahman, the mind was given along with the senses to perceive this world, and then use their tendencies to overcome the entrapment of those tendencies, to go back, reverse engineer yourself into the Nirgun Brahman where we belong. Jai Shri Ram.